I'm Ben Solak, and this is the Play Sheet Draft Edition, Episode 1. The opening script, draft outliers, and what they mean. It's a draft of outliers this year, and some outliers are hilarious. Take Florida quarterback Anthony Richardson. He came into the combine as one of the heaviest quarterbacks ever, and then tested as one of the best vertical jumpers, one of the best broad jumpers, one of the best 40-yard dashers, one of the best 10-yard splitters we've ever seen at quarterback. Richardson is a unicorn of an athlete, and so is Kansas State running back Deuce Vaughn, who at 5'5" is the shortest dude ever measured at the combine. And so is Ohio State offensive tackle DeJuan Jones, with the second longest wingspan of anybody at the combine, 87 7/8 inches. Put another way, if you took Deuce Vaughn and turned him on his side, you could fit 1.5 Deuce Vaughns between DeJuan Jones's fingertips. So incredible testers, testing outliers. They're hilarious and they're fun to talk about, but they're also meaningful. Individual outlier prospects challenge evaluators. NFL scouts have to ask, is this guy going to be able to overcome his size, or will he become another data point, somebody who is too small or too slow to succeed in the NFL? And the other direction is true. Elite testers like Richardson and Jones, for example, make NFL scouts ask, is this guy so athletically gifted, there's just no way he fails? I want to talk about some of the outliers in this class, not just what they are individually, but what they mean collectively for this NFL draft class and for the NFL drafts to come. Outlier number 1, Bryce Young. It's a small class overall, and for nobody is their size a greater concern than for Alabama quarterback Bryce Young. At 5'10" and 1/8 of an inch, Bryce Young is the 4th shortest quarterback to be measured at the NFL Combine since 1999. For context, there's only 7 quarterbacks in NFL history who have started at least 50 games and been 5'11" and shorter. And while the mind immediately goes to Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, some of those guys are like Eddie LeBaron and Pat Hayden and Bob Berry, which I don't know who that is and you don't know who that is. With all outliers, we have to ask the question of, why does this matter / does this actually matter? And in the case of quarterback height, it really does. Quarterback height has gotten a lot of attention in recent years because usually the way we think about quarterbacking is the shorter a quarterback is, the harder it is for him to see over his offensive line. And while he can still throw to the sidelines easily and he can still chuck it deep downfield easily, oftentimes throwing to that middle of the field is really challenging. When you see short quarterbacks drop back, they often drop back further in the pocket than tall quarterbacks do, because they're trying to get enough of an angle, enough distance from that offensive line so they can see over those guys. Bryce Young, as a matter of fact, will actually drop back on his tiptoes. You can see him get up and kind of bounce on his tiptoes when he's trying to throw to the middle of the field. And that's because he's trying to make sure he gets a chance to see where his receivers are. But that's only the first half of the issue. Let's go to play action. Okay, so here's Bryce Young against Texas, and he's going to have a dig route developing right into this window as this safety bails out. The first thing to watch, we'll get to the receiver in a second. The first thing to watch is Young in the pocket, right? He's already upright. He's already up on his toes. And as the pocket develops, look at how far back he is. This is the pocket right here. Look at where he's standing as he tries to make sure he has a chance to see these routes develop. So the first thing is just geographically where he is in the pocket. But the next issue for the short quarterback is this. If you're going to throw into this window right here, then you have to be able to deliver the ball over the first level of defenders, right? These linebackers right here, you have to get the ball over the top of them. Else you have to try to throw between them, right? Try to throw into a window, which means you have to wait in the pocket. But if you can layer this throw over the first level and then drop it into the second level before this safety closed down, you can hit this intermediate window. But because Young is so short, because he's low to the ground, this arc is more dramatic. It's more difficult to achieve than if his release point of the ball were up here. If he were taller and he was throwing this ball from a higher spot, he wouldn't need to arc the ball nearly as much, and it's easier to get it over that first level and drop it into the second level. So we can see Young is going to pass on this route. He's not going to take it, right? He's going to step up. He's developing in a space. There is absolutely NFL room to throw this football, and he's going to decide instead to just check it down to the back, right? He's not going to take the opportunity to throw this ball. Now, this is Anthony Richardson, quarterback out of Florida. Bryce Young doesn't take that intermediate throw. He doesn't want to try to layer that throw over the linebackers. Here's Richardson, all right? Snap the football. And we're going to have a bender right here from the slot. Bender's coming into the middle of the field. There's the safety. He's the second level. Here's the linebacker. Here's the first level. Watch Richardson just drop this thing in over the linebacker, in front of the safety, in stride, catch and run afterwards. So a taller quarterback does not have the same challenge layering those throws to the middle of the field. And that's why you typically see tall quarterbacks work that area of the field. Short quarterbacks pass on it. Is this really going to matter for Bryce Young? In terms of where he gets drafted, it seems like no. This guy's going in one of the first 2 picks. This height weight issue, not affecting his draft stock. However, there is more than one concern with having outlier size, particularly in this case, outlier weight. Yes, Bryce Young tipped the scales at the combine at 204, but that would make him just 3 pounds lighter than Kyler Murray at the same height, and we have seen the two of them with one another. They are not the same size. Young almost certainly played under 200 pounds, and when you're not just small, but you're also slim, you're slight, you don't have a lot of body armor. And the concern in the NFL is that you're not going to take a ton of hits season over season, well, in terms of your health. So even if it doesn't matter for Young short term and he gets drafted really highly, it could matter for Young long term in terms of just his general career longevity. Outlier number 2, Pitt defensive tackle, Calijah Kancey. Kancey is expected to be a first-round pick, maybe early second-round pick, but regardless of where he gets selected, he will be a groundbreaking player when he enters the NFL. Kancey has 30 and 5/8 inch arms, which is the 7th shortest arm length for any defensive lineman, defensive tackle or defensive end in the NFL Combine. If you hear 30 and 5/8 inch arm length and go, I don't really know what that means, don't worry, I got you. So arm length is measured, you put your arm out, we'll just do it. Okay, so 30 and 5/8. Usually this is done by 2 people. I gotta try to do it by myself. You put your arm out straight and then you measure it from, it goes from like the round of the shoulder, like where the shoulder starts to end, to the fingertip, to your middle finger, right? Yeah, see, extremely easy. I'm a professional. Don't try this at home, kids. 28 inches, okay? So I'm not an NFL player. Calijah Kancey's arms like this much longer than mine. Kancey's just generally a really small defensive lineman. He's 2nd percentile in terms of height. He's 4th percentile in terms of weight for defensive tackles. The exchange is that Kancey ran a screaming 4.67 40-yard dash, an unbelievable time for a defensive tackle. But we have to ask the same question. Does this matter? And running really fast in 40 yards doesn't exactly matter for defensive tackles. It's nice to have a good 10-yard split. Those first 10 seconds, boom, off-ball explosiveness. Kancey's got that, and if you watch his film, that's where he wins. Off-ball explosiveness, first step, beat the offensive guards, penetrate, get upfield. However, what really matters here is the arm length. If you're going to play in the trenches, and especially if you're going to play in the trenches with a size deficiency, you have to be able to hold your ground. You have to be able to fight power for power. If a guy gets his hands on you, he can't just control you and choose where you go. And for a player that's stubby like Kancey, that's unfortunately a huge worry. Here's a list of every defensive lineman with at least 10 sacks in their career. Now, look at the area in which we find Calijah Kancey, sub 31 inch arms. Unless he becomes Kyle Williams, it's really tough to see him having a super prolific long career of sacking the quarterback with this lack of length. Outlier number 3, small wide receivers. This year's wide receiver class is super duper small. We've got Tennessee wide receiver Jalen Hyatt, USC's Jordan Addison, Liberty's Demario Douglas, we have Cincinnati's Tyler Scott, we have Purdue's Charlie Jones, we have UNC's Josh Downs, Fresno State's Jalen Cropper, we have Tank Dell from Houston, Darius Davis from TCU. That's 9 receivers who are all under 180 pounds. That is the most sub 180 receivers we've had at an NFL Combine in the 2000s. For all of these guys collectively, Jalen and Hyatt and Jordan Addison especially, as guys who might be first-round picks, does this matter? It absolutely does. This is the 3rd year in a row in which you've had at least 5 receivers come in sub 180, which in the 21 years previous only happened 4 times. So this doesn't so much matter for them individually as it matters for the league collectively. The receiver position is just getting lighter. The reason is because college offenses have gotten a lot better at finding ways to get smaller receivers the ball. Just get them the ball in space, let them run after the catch, get them free releases down the field. Offenses have become more clever and more pass-oriented, so now lighter athletes are more viable at the position. And critically, we're not talking about like huge talent outliers here. This isn't like a Devontae Smith who won the freaking Heisman Trophy and plays like he's 210 pounds. That's not what we're doing. We're talking about guys like Tutu Atwell and Wan'Dale Robinson, and Elijah Moore, talking about Calvin Austin, players who have come out in recent years with a ton of hype, but just haven't really been big enough to this point in the NFL. And that's the issue. There are only 12 sub 180 pound receivers in league history who have had at least 3 seasons of 1,000 receiving yards. If we limit that to this century, only 8 players have even done it, had a season of 1,000 receiving yards. Only 4 players have done it twice. So if you find yourself banging on the table, my favorite team, I want them to take one of these small guys, think twice. The NFL's close. They're getting there. It's a horizon for us in terms of getting these sub 180-pound receivers to really work at the NFL level, but we're not there yet. Last but not least, group 4, the small edge rushers. If you thought wide receiver was light, edge is ridiculous. Since 1999, 19 edge rushers have weighed in at the NFL Combine under 240 pounds. 6 of those players are in this year's draft class. The 2 most notable names are Georgia's Nolan Smith, who was also an outlier in terms of his 40-yard dash time, and Iowa State's Will McDonald. Smith's probably going to go round 1. Will McDonald might go round 1. And again, just like with receivers, there is worrisome historical precedent for edge rushers that are this light. Since 2000, only 5 players under 240 pounds have had multiple seasons of 6+ sacks. And one of those guys is Jamal Adams, who is decisively not an edge rusher. The fact that the edge rusher position is also getting lighter in the same way that receiver is getting lighter should not be a surprise. In fact, it's another piece of evidence of the continuing changing times of the NFL. As the passing game is prioritized on the offensive side of the ball, pass rush is going to be prioritized on the defensive side of the ball, and defensive linemen inherently become lighter, faster, more explosive. Again, think Kalijah Cansey from before, the defensive tackle out of Pitt, who's super light, but super explosive. This is the framework that we have to use in order to understand this draft class. We don't want to talk about these individual players as outliers, but actually as the forefront, the crest of just like a changing paradigm for some of these positions. It's not that, oh, Nolan Smith is an outlier small edge. It's that, hey, we're about to see more and more sub 240-pound edges than we've ever seen before. Nolan Smith's just the beginning. The general football community, from the coaching staff and the positional coaches, down to the nutritionist and the weight room guys and the medical staff, we've all gotten way better at making a wider variety of athletes work, of making them viable, of having guys who are smaller than expected or shorter than expected or slower than expected still somehow survive at the NFL level. This just inherently creates a larger pool of players. There's just more dudes who can work at the NFL at wide receiver and at pass rusher and at defensive tackle and at quarterback than never before. And what that means is the NFL has more chances to get talented players because there's just more guys to pick from. So it is a draft of outliers, but it's also a draft of change, of evolution and innovation at the college level and at the NFL level, from a scheme perspective and from a player development perspective. It's a changing league, and the players entering it are changing too. That's it for this episode of The Play Sheet. That is not it for draft episodes of The Play Sheet. Make sure you subscribe, ring that bell, brother, and we're going to talk about a bunch of the quarterbacks and go through a lot of their films. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching.